Welcome to the Pink Room, a space for real talk by real women about the real issues of our day.
As minorities, we're not only your day laborers. We're not only the ones that clean your houses or your hotels, right? We are human beings that have capacity to be part of every area of this country.
The strategy needs to be to get into these political offices.
Every election, every seat, every office.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Teresa, if I would just like to say, I don't consider myself a minority. If the world wants to see us as minorities, because we are actually the majority, but if they want to see us as minorities, then call us the super minority.
People started to post some microaggressions that they were experiencing from their professors.
Wow.
And hearing so many perspectives, they're like, you have to do something. If I have the resource, I'll do well as well. I'll do well just as well as others do. Don't make things easier for me. I just want the resource. That's all. And I think that's the misconception, that they think that we want handouts. We don't want handouts. We just want what the others get. That's it. Give us what you give others, and we will do just as well.
Excellent. Ashley.
As long as you can ensure that one group of people in this country have access to good education,
right,
another group does not have access to adequate education, right, you basically guarantee that the group that has less access to good education, then remain the sickest people in our system. And so you have the conflation of several policies, or the absence of policies, that basically create and sustain the perfect storm in this country.
That's not where your application is going to come from.
Right.
Humans fail us all the time. It is not in someone else. You can't find in someone else what you cannot find first within yourself. What entryways were there for someone else to come in and feed you false narratives? You have to build up those fortresses first. And when I say fortresses, I don't mean walls to block people out. I mean confidence within yourself to know that you can look in the mirror and say to the mirror, Latoya, you are loved. I love you. I love you. You are beautiful.
Start your watch parties. Cast the Pink Room on your HD TVs. Post your comments in the chat. This space is yours too.
We want to say welcome to everyone to our Pink Room. This is a special edition. We are coming to you from the 2021 Leadership Summit for Women. This is our 5th annual Leadership Summit. And we have guests with us from all over the Latin America, United States, and Caribbean region. And they're joining us, and they will be joining us for this Pink Room. We have a very interesting topic. We want to talk about women walking in their truth. And one of the reasons why we want to touch on this topic, because we are talking about amplifying our voices for change, for influence, and for power. And I have with me today 5 co-hostesses. We usually have 3. So we want to ask each one of them to introduce themselves to you and tell you the role that they have in For Real Women International.
Hi, my name is Tricia Penicoc. I am from Costa Rica, but I live in Tampa, Florida. I've been with For Real Women for about a year. I came to my first summit a year ago, and I serve as coach for women who are thinking about their future, their professional future.
Hi, everyone. My name is in For Real Women International For 2 years now, I started off as a student in the Lead Academy in 2018, and then I volunteered for the board for about 6 months, and now I am an official member. I serve as the Director of Internal and Administrative Communications.
Hi, I am Chanel George, and I have been with For Real Women International for, I think it's 8 years now. I currently serve as the media director, so all things communication in terms of media, our social media platforms, I direct those areas. I am very excited to be here this evening and work with this organization that has given me so much.
And hi, I'm Shonda. And with all this craziness in the world, I just want to say I'm Shonda from America, but I live in New York. Anyhow, I'm a board member and also a mentor for the regions here in the USA. So if there are others on who are from the USA and want to join have some others join us, please do. Now is the time. And so welcome. So happy to have you all with us.
Hello, my name is Latoya Wright. I have been with this amazing organization for, I believe, over 8 years now, and have had various roles, but currently now one of the spiritual coach or advisor, and just really privileged to be here in peace with women who are working to make the world a better place in the midst of all the chaos that we are experiencing. So it's a real privilege to call these ladies sisters and to be with them tonight.
Thank you so much, all of you. And most of you know me as Norca. I am the founder of this organization, but nothing could be done without any of the ladies who are part of this organization. We heard some great reports today from the Latin American region and from the Dutch Caribbean region and from the English Caribbean region. And I stand amazed at my sisters. The work that they do is just amazing. We are really clueless, and we really stand humbled by the work. But let's get into the matters that have brought us here today. We want to talk with you a little bit today about women and the condition of silencing that occurs with women, which leads to women not being able to speak their truth. So let's start talking about systems and conditions that continue to oppress and suppress women and girls. And I know that oftentimes when this topic comes up, I have heard from men who say, what are you guys talking about? You know, you have all the rights, you can do this, you can do that. What they don't understand is that as long as we still have frontiers that we're still talking about, it's the first woman. As long as our salaries are not equal, as long as we continue to have the lower end of the stick in so many issues, and so we are still not equal and we're coming for more. And why are we coming for more? Is it because we're mean? Is it because we think we're better than them? Absolutely not. We believe that we're equals. We believe that God created us as equals and equal condition. But I want to break this a little bit by just sharing a personal story of mine that, interestingly enough, and my sisters will then share some of their own interactions with systems and conditions of oppression or suppression. Interestingly enough, I remembered this story during a 3-hour interview, a story that I had, I want to say suppressed instead of forgotten. I had suppressed this story for a long, long time. I want to tell you that I suppressed this story for perhaps more than 30 years of my life. Ooh. This story happened when I was in 6th grade. I was in 6th grade, and I have come to the realization that for some reason, or not for some reason, I think there is a divine appointing upon my life, but I've always had this thing where I wanted to bring women together and I wanted us to work for change. Now I'm talking about sixth grade. Sixth grade. How old are we at sixth grade?
11, 12.
11, 12, right? So my parents were working in this particular country, not our country. And I was in sixth grade in that particular, I'm not calling the country because I know people like to attach these things to specific countries, but what I want to talk is about the condition. It could have happened anywhere. And I decided in sixth grade that I wanted to start a girls' club, a club for girls. And we had a little song, and we were the girls in action, and we are the girls in action. We had a little song, we got one another. We're not now. And we met to have our little meeting, learn our little song, and talk about all the things that we were going to do as girls in action. Because in that particular school, the boys ran the playground. And for you to be able to play softball, either the guys had to give you an in, or you just could not play, right? And teachers and principals knew that this was going on, but they would say, oh, let the boys play, you girls sit on the stoop or whatever, eat your oranges, shut up, right? So I decided that why not? We want to play. And my family, if you know anything about the Blackmans, we were huge baseball players. So I was like, I want to play. Like I play with my dad after work when he comes home, I want to play. So we got to do something about this playground situation here. And our meeting, the girls were like, yeah, we're going to do this. Yes, absolutely. In walks in a classmate of mine, a boy. And he says, what is this all about? And we're like, we are the girls in action and we're going to whatever. And we want to play and da-da-da. And this 12-year-old child or 13, I don't know how old he was at that time, raised his leg. What did I say? Leg. And kicked me in the face.
Ay, ay, ay.
He did not slap me. He did not do the kid stuff, punch you, push you. He raised his leg and he kicked me in my face. Mm-hmm. Totally scraping the entire side of my face.
Ay, ay, ay.
Totally swollen. The girl scampers screaming. I am holding my face, really not probably realizing what happened. And he's there like, yes, like, you don't whatever, and we da-da-da, giving me a sermon after he kicked me in my face. So I go home. Those days we walk home, go home, and my father at the time was a pastor of note in that particular place. And he said, what? He did. So my father marched back down to the school. He's like, this is not going to happen. You're either going to expel him. And they were like, no. Kids are kids. Those are boys. This is what boys do. No. Put a little, it's okay. We don't do that here. This kid, if it wasn't because of my father and sister, I think he stayed out of school for a couple of days, came back to school like nothing happened. His brother later on got into some other egregious acts, aggressive acts. Now I realize that this is perhaps what they had seen at home. But look at how the entire system allowed this to happen. Now I'm a 12-year-old. I'm a 12-year-old in sixth grade. I'm a young woman experiencing this aggression. And if it wasn't for my parents, no one else was there to speak up for me. Can you imagine what would have happened if my parents hadn't spoken out and I had grown believing that this was okay? Mm-hmm. That this was allowed, that as the principal at the time said, he is a boy. Let him be. Can you imagine what that would do to me? So conditions of oppression, sister, share, have you experienced anything that could be life-changing, or have you seen women go through situations like these?
Yeah, I think for me, I think I am part of a large community of faith, and particularly because of how my husband is connected to that community of faith, I think for a very long time, there are some systems of oppression within communities of faith that sort of tell women that they need to be in a particular space. We hear the term all the time, behind every great man is a great woman. So just the concept of what it means to be behind someone. Just it means in some way she is releasing herself of her own identity.
That's right.
And you are not even seeing her because she's standing behind. And I get what they mean, holding up the back, right? I don't think it's the woman's job to hold up the man. I really don't. I think she should be shielded by him. I think that is his job. And I think a lot of times in my life, I entered situations thinking that it was my job to be a support for my spouse all the time. It's my job to hold him up. And that meant a lot of things for me. It meant that the single parent household that I was from, where my mom was strong, she was courageous, she took care of the things that needed to be taken care of. She allowed me space to be able to be myself. And so now coming into a system where I'm standing behind the man, right? I'm holding the man up. Coming into a system like that, I'm thinking, I'm being told all the time, you're a little loud, you know, for a girl. You're a little loud for a woman. You have too many opinions. You talk too much. I wonder what it would look like if you just allowed your husband to lead in the spaces. And so prior to even meeting my spouse, I was very much involved in things in the community. And I think because of what his role was, I think there were things about that I needed to stop doing, that I needed to suppress, because I was being told that by the village. And so you're 23 years old and you get married into a situation and your entire village is telling you that you need to be silenced because this is what people in your position do.
Absolutely.
And there's an identity crisis that you go through in that moment. You no longer know who you are because you have allowed that structure and that system of suppression to silence your own voice and to silence your own identity.
Right. Can so identify and relate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's so many stories that have gone through my mind as we talked about what we would be talking about here tonight. And it's hard to decide which one, because is it family structure system? Is it the faith tradition system? Is it the career education system? So I'm going to go with the career education one for now, but it doesn't mean that I don't relate so much to what Chanel just shared. Because they're kind of joined together. When you have goals and aspirations for your own professional life, you are told very early that you have to choose. To if you want to have a home and a family, you can't study too much. You can't be too smart. You can't be a manager, because that is not what women who want to be wife material do. And some of us decide we're just not going to choose. And I grew up, I think something that more than one of us on this today in this room have in common is fathers or parents, in some cases fathers, mothers, whoever, parents who were very supportive and empowering of who we were from very early. Anything you want, you need to be able to speak your mind. So when you're used to doing that, and then you go up against the world that is saying, be quiet, you talk too much, you think too much, this isn't a subject that you should know about, go knit, then the part of it is that when you see that what is expected of you and even your own desires isn't happening, then you start thinking, okay, maybe then I need to change myself so that I can be more like the ones who are getting the dates, the ones who are getting invited to the banquets, the ones who are having the boyfriends. I remember a time when I was working in Limon, and we had the first dengue outbreak when I was there. And I have always worked in positions that are occupied by people that are much older than me. It's catching up to me now, but back then I was much younger than anybody else in my circle. And for some reason, it seemed that our cases weren't going down. Every day there were 100, 150 new cases of dengue. And dengue had been a political promise from the current president, saying 0 deaths from dengue, which means you're promising something you really can't deliver, but it's onto someone else's back for them to deliver it. And I was called back from New Year's because the dengue broke out. And we were divided in regions. My boss was the regional director. He wasn't from there. He's one of those bosses when you live in a outward place, then they send, all the bosses come from the capital. For some reason, it doesn't seem like anybody local can manage their own region. You have to bring somebody in. But that somebody in doesn't want to be there. So they'll leave on Thursday, come on Tuesday, and the rest of the time, you sort of have to make up what you need to make up. So anyway, we were seeing that the cases weren't going down, and there was another region where the cases had kind of disappeared. So we were intervened. And the Minister of Health sent the regional director, who was my boss's counterpart and my counterpart, and he said, I'm sending him to your region so he can fix your mess because it's clear that you don't know what to do.
Wow.
So the first day they walk in in shorts, flip-flops, and towels around their neck. And they said, we are here at the beach. We intend to go to the beach. So tell us what you're doing quickly because we didn't come here to work. So they said, show us your map. And there was a map on the wall that had push pins of different colors depending on the number of cases and where they were. And the county where we lived in was also the name of the region. So you could call Limon the whole province, or you could call Limon just the city. So when we counted cases, we counted the whole province and not all the different towns around the main city because they were all part of the county. So they go and they see the map and they say, show us Limon. So we showed them the city and the different towns. And he said, what are you counting? And I said, we're counting Limon and the different towns. He said, that's your problem. You're counting too many cases. Just count the city. That's all you need to do. Count the city and your cases will drop like this. So my boss turns around and looks at me and says, see, I've been telling you this whole time, this is your fault. The reason why I can't go home on the weekends is because you're counting all these cases that don't need to be counted. That is why we're in the mess we're in. Mm. So they grab their towels and say, see you later, and head out. So we were supposed to send a daily report of the cases, new cases, cumulative cases, how many in the hospital, how many died that day. So he says, my boss says, okay, write the report and do it the way he said. And that was a moment for me because you do what I say or you get fired.
Right. Right.
And then I said, I'm not signing that report. You can do whatever you like. Mm. And he said, I'm giving you an order. I'm the boss here. You signed that report because they had to have both signatures. I said, I'm not signing that report. And he said, oh, well, looks like you don't need this job. He signed the report and he sent it. Those were fax days. Fax went through at 11. At 11:03, the phone rang. Minister of Health. Why didn't Trisha sign that report?
Wow.
Because I can't sign that report. And the Minister of Health said, if she doesn't sign the report, I'm not receiving it. Mm. So he had to do it over. and I signed the report. Long story short, he was there for a month later, and then they shipped him out, and I got his job. And the reason I'm telling this story is because that silencing includes make your boss look good.
Right.
If your boss is a man, you need to work so he can look good.
Yep.
So he'll go to the meetings and present your reports. You give your ideas and he'll present them as his. And we have seen, how many of us haven't seen all those TV shows like Perry Mason, where Della is the one holding down the shop, knows the people, gives the ideas, but the one that stands up in front of the courtroom and says, I object, Your Honor, is Perry Mason, except she's the one that fed the entire process. So the system of education and employment is one that oppresses women into not showing up in their full light, but only supporting the men that are in leadership positions.
It's a powerful story. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I'm just thinking about what everyone has said and just to what's processing in my head right now. All of these illegal marriages of careers, families, communities, institutions of faith that have all joined in these systems of oppression and these conditions. And like we all said, I think there's a whole host of stories. And I know my story is just growing up. And for whatever reason, I grew up in my time in my community, it was a lot of boys that I grew up with. And I remember a lot of times they would tell me, oh, Shonda, you can't do this because you're a girl, you can't do this. And the more they said you can't, the more I would do it, right? And so some people will call that tomboy, whatever. I call it Supergirl because I was able to do much better than the boys, right? And they couldn't understand that why I, as this girl, was able to do better in most of the sports activities, events, or whatever that they were supposed to excel in. But that message was so prevalent that even my peers, whom I thought we were really good friends because I just happened to grow up in the community in my age bracket, it was just a lot of boys. It was few girls that I could play with, all this stuff. I mean, they were there. But just to think of how prevalent that message was in their minds, that at those ages, they were able to recognize that I, as a woman, as a girl, that I'm considered the weaker of the sexes, right? And that means that I shouldn't be able to do those things. But again, I remember just pushing through and doing whatever they were doing and doing it better. And then, some of the older guys in the community would tease them, right? Because they would say, oh, you all are getting on Shonda. Look, Shonda can do better than you. And so I felt really good. And that pushed me even more to, excel in my community and a lot of the things. But it's just so scary because then you hear a lot of times young boys being taught you don't hit girls or you don't do this to girls when they're young, but in the same, when you're little, but in the same note, you're also saying that you're better or you're more powerful. And then you hear this message, ladies first, ladies first. Is that just their way of saying, we'll give you a little something in the world because we know in all these other avenues of life, you're not worth it, right?
I love it.
So that ladies first thing, I'm kind of like
giving you crumbs.
Yeah, you don't mean it. You don't mean it because when you put that lady first in it, then the first thing you do is sit her down in the back of the room and keep your mouth shut and don't speak.
Right.
You're not to be heard. You're only to be seen as that eye candy and all that good stuff that people may use today or they don't. But those are the stories I remember just growing up with and being around a lot of people and even some of their male teachers.
Yeah.
It's blowing my mind because those are the years that are so impressionable, and we wonder why some of us as women can't get past it because those are such impressionable years that it's been embedded in the DNA of our minds, and we just have to find ways to shake it. I mean, unless you become a part of this organization and join us, and then there it goes. But overall, I think that it's so it has become a part of the DNA of a lot of women, and these experiences and the things that we're told, it really holds us down so that we fit that mold perfectly of the conditions of oppression And that is why a lot of boys learn early, in my opinion, and men continue to do it because it's just there. But kudos to those sisters and those women who have broken that mold. And we love you for it. Because of you, we are able to, walk in our truths now.
There's a question here, and I want to screen it, and it has a lot to do with the examples that were given before by my co-hostesses. And since we have Latoya, which is in what is still called a non-traditional career for women, I don't understand why. And we have Chantal, who is of a younger generation. The question was to Tricia, but I would love for Chantal or Latoya to answer. The question was, do you think it's still this way that women cannot be ambitious? What are your thoughts on that?
It's so funny. Shonda, I'm saying wow, like you were saying wow, because I'm just like, I'm hearing, like, this stuff, and then when you're hearing it, it's like, we're still dealing with this? It's just mind blowing. There's a quote I wanted to quickly share. It lead in to answer this question, and it says, it's from Letty Cotton Hogrebin, I think. I probably just jacked up her name, but sorry, Letty, if you ever see this. And it says, when men are oppressed, it's a tragedy. When women are oppressed, it's tradition.
Yep.
Yeah. And that is such a striking quote, because it is exactly the world that we live in. Like Shonda, I grew up as a tomboy, and I grew up around men who gave me a world that I did not know wasn't normal, was not traditional. I did everything they did. I grew up with the uncles, and so what they did, they did. They went under the car, I went under the car. They climbed a coconut tree, I climbed the coconut tree. They rode bikes, I did that. And it wasn't until you come out of that bubble, and these are bubbles that we grow up in, right? And sometimes the bubble that we grow up in is non-traditional. I'm using that term very loosely, because there are some men who raise their girls up to be equal and view them as equal, and make sure they put those messages in their head that you are equal. And I had these men in my life that gave me that view. So when I was hit like a brick with what is traditional, in my mind it was like, what are you talking about? Like, what? So my initial career was to be a neurosurgeon. That is what I wanted to be. That is what I aspired to be. And I started on that track by volunteering in a hospital. I was already in a system that oppresses women called the immigration system, as an undocumented immigrant. Yeah. So that alone, you at the bottom of the barrel, and I'm Black, so you could forget that. Plus I have an accent, so you could just throw the whole work it out. So I am in this system already, and going through volunteering in the hospital. And because I was smart, they took me kind of under their wings and allowed me to work with some of the neurosurgeons that were already there, the director of the department and so forth. And one day he sat with me in the cafeteria. He treated me for lunch. And as we sat there, he said to me, you're a quick learner, you're volunteering downstairs. And so when you go to school, like, we want to pour into you and so forth. And then he asked me a very interesting question. So he first did the prelude with, you're smart, you're a quick learner, and all of these things. And we see all of this in you to be a great neurosurgeon. And then he asked me this one question: do you want a family or not?
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I am 17, 18 years old, fresh out of high school. I knew what I wanted. I had gotten full scholarships to do pre-med. I couldn't go because I wasn't documented, And so here's this hospital willing to help me out, but he had to ask me a question: do you want a family? And so my answer was just, Yeah, of course. I was not thinking in the realm of what he was. He didn't care whether I wanted a family or not. He had, I mean, I wasn't even betrothed. You know, we use these words. He asked me the question, and I said, yeah, I want a family. Do you want kids? He said, yes, I would like kids. And he said, so I would suggest that you don't do neurosurgery. You don't become you don't go to the top. You try to do pediatric neurosurgery.
Wow.
Because that way you can have a life, you can have a 9 to 5, and you can still have your family. But if you decide to be a neurosurgeon, you won't have any life, and you'll be in the lab all day and so forth. And you know, at that age, I had so much already oppressing me, it didn't click that this is what he was doing to me. He was literally taking the helium out of my balloon. Right. And he planted that seed in my mind, and I bought it. I bought it. So this is answering the question. Yes, it absolutely still happens when you try to detour someone from their dreams because of them carrying ovaries.
Right.
You would never ask a man that, because having a family would never stop or slow down or prevent a man from doing what he's supposed to do. But dare us women have a family, that means we have to take time off and we have to raise the kids and so forth. And so the system I grew up in, I saw the women do all of that. They had children, they went to work, they did. There was nothing that stopped them from doing that. So when he said it to me, I was just thinking about the immigration part of it, believe it or not. And I said, oh, okay, I could be a pediatric neurosurgeon. And he just left it like that.
Wow.
There was nothing like, you can absolutely be the best neurosurgeon anywhere, but they still wanted to pour into me if I considered doing the pediatric neurosurgery. Wow. So it does happen. It's very subtle. It's very disrespectful. It's very traditional. And it's in ways where you believe what they're saying is for your betterment. Mm-hmm. And by the time you buy that stinking lie, you end up following that track and you're pursuant of it. You put your passion into it, not realizing that that's not what you wanted to do. Someone told you that you couldn't do it because you had ovaries. Right. And they would never dare tell a man that. So absolutely, still happens.
Yeah. Chantal?
I'm sitting here and I'm listening to all these stories, and I'm inspired by all of you and on everything that you've had to share. And I think for me, being the youngest person on the panel, you know, my experiences seem so inferior and small compared to what you've all experienced. But I want to thank you for sharing that. But I think for me, I really relate to what you said, Latoya, with growing up, and all of you growing up with parents who support you, with women in your life who do it all. They work, they go to school, they take care of the family. I mean, that is not uncommon in our culture, you know, to have strong women like that who do all of these things. So when I think about this conversation, I almost think about the fact that I live a life with the people who are closest to me where I feel very sheltered in a way, because I am so supported and encouraged and empowered to do what I want to do in my life. And then when I go out into the world says, well, you can't do that, or you can't dress that way, or why is your hair curly, straighten it, or whatever, you know? And so I was just thinking, I have an interesting story. When I first graduated from college, I originally wanted to go into the Peace Corps, and I had gotten in. I was really excited. I was going to be serving 2 years in Guatemala in the youth development program. And at the time, this was the fall of 2016, and the current president was elected. And so it was really interesting to see that everything that I wanted to do in the Peace Corps was now, you know, I couldn't do it anymore. It was just totally eradicated from the program because there was no longer funding for it, one. And two, it really wasn't safe for Americans to be abroad in certain areas. So I was really disappointed because I felt like that was going to be my end. That was my trajectory into what I wanted to do in the world, you know, eventually go to grad school or law school or, you know, work in some kind of nonprofit. That's what I wanted to do. I had my mindset on that, and like, you know, that was it. And when that didn't happen, it kind of forced me back into the drawing board, and I really had to, you know, think about what avenue I was going to go in. And I had just graduated. I'm a hard worker. I love to work, and I'm always doing something. So I was just ready for anything to just drop on my lap. So I accepted this internship, and I started working for a brokerage and reinsurance firm in New York City in the financial district, very corporate, very, you know, intimidating. And for someone who went to, you know, school in the Poconos, grew up in the Poconos her whole life, you know, I mean, I've always went to New York, but, you know, I went to school here, and this was like my little bubble. So now I'm in the city, and I'm working with these people who are just, they're scary. You know, I'm excited. I'm young. I'm enthusiastic. I'm a lot sometimes. And they weren't ready for that in that environment where everything is crisp, it's sharp. You know, they want the information, they want it now. They don't care about all the fluff. And it was very difficult for me to transition. And I remember my first week there. By the way, I was the only one in the office who looked like me. And my first week there, one of the guys told me, first I was shocked because everyone wore, you know, jeans and t-shirts, or, you know, they're very informal, very casual. And for me, working in a corporate office, you have to dress a certain way, you have to act a certain way. Like, that's just what I was taught. That's always what I was told. That's just what I had assumed. And so the first week he told me that I was too professional. He told me that I spoke too formally in my emails when I would speak to other, you know, clients and other people in the office, and with how I dressed. And I just said to myself, what? Like, this is a professional environment. This is a corporate environment. We're working with C-suite people. We have high-level clients. What are you saying to me? And I'll never forget that. And I worked in that job for about a year and a half. And I would say the first 6 months of that job, I was really unhappy. I felt like I lost myself. I wasn't the fun, confident, quirky girl anymore. I kind of was just, you know, there, just floating along. And I hated that feeling. I hated that I would go to work and, you know, I would leave and I would take all that stress with me from the day. I did not know how to compartmentalize then. I would take all that with me, and then it affected me for like a good year. I lost myself for a good year. It was not good. I didn't even want to come home because I'm like, you know, I feel guilty because, you know, it's my first big girl job. I'm making good money. Like, you know, I should be happy. I should be this, that, and the other. But I wasn't. And it really, I had to leave that job in order to come back to center, to come back to base, to do the thing. And maybe that was an experience I needed to have too, to realize that, you know, that environment wasn't for me, and that lifestyle and those people that I worked with, it's a totally different lifestyle. It's like they live a whole different reality with how they communicate with one another, the things that are important to them. It is so, you know, self-consuming. I couldn't believe it, you know. And even when sometimes I watch the news and I look at these programs and I'm like, these people are so detached from reality. You know, it was just a lot. It was a lot. But like I said, looking back, I'm glad that I had that experience because I learned a lot professionally and personally. And you know, it was an interesting time.
You know, it's interesting. I'm drawing a line here between everything that has been shared here with the fact that oftentimes as women, we are, in many ways, with what I've heard, our dreams are snuffed out of us. We're silenced. We're sidelined. I mean, Chantal's experience is interesting because I've always found that corporate world tends to be a little hypocritical. They're very informal in many ways, but yet still they're very quick. So interesting. And Latoya's story about, so let's talk about how this is manifested. We've kind of throughout our stories, we've shown how the silencing can occur or does occur, or the departure from your dreams and intentions of what you want to be. And Latoya, here's a quote that you also mentioned: when men are oppressed, it's a tragedy, but when women are oppressed, it's tradition. So let's talk about how this oppression of ourselves, we're talking about women walking in their truth, how it's manifested, these systems and conditions are manifested in our family or workplace, in our churches, and in society. How is this manifested?
I'd like to say something, maybe like a bridge into this section, because to address something Toya said, it's not just words. So the fact that he told you, if you want to be a neurosurgeon, you can't have a family, you can't have children, it's actually true, because they've made it so.
Right.
It's not in your capacity.
Right.
The system is built so you cannot make it.
Right.
Because what it values is everything that you cannot do. Right. If you want a family, if you want to have children. Mm-hmm. So it's true that it can't happen, but it has nothing to do with your capacity. The problem is we hear that and internalize it as it must be me.
That's right.
I can't do it.
Right.
I'm not good enough. That's not it at all.
Right.
But the system is set up by them so that we cannot succeed, because what it values is all the things we aren't. So they are really keeping you out. And they're using the words, but they're also using the system, because some people would say, what are words?
Yeah.
You know, jump over the words, be brave, you can do it. The system is built intentionally so that it's not just words. The system itself is the one that's keeping you back from being able to get into those roles.
And I like that you're bringing that in, Tricia, because the system is not only in healthcare. The system is in church. The system is in our families. The system is in our workplace. And honestly, I think that we try to bend over backwards, right? To try to, because as you said, it's something with us. So we need to accommodate and adjust ourselves. You know, and I've been to talks where people are telling you about the workplace, and they're basically telling you, strip yourself of yourself so that you can fit within this mold. And that is problematic in so many ways, because again, it's also a supremacist mindset, because you're not good enough. You're not enough. You have to redo yourself so you can fit within this. And for women, I like what Latoya said, because she brought the immigration system. It's a double whammy. You're female, and if you're of color, and if you're of a certain age, there's so, and then, you know, the child thing, there's so many things that seem to be stacked up against us. But let's hear your thoughts on this. How do we manifest this? And I think the main thing is we are not able to speak our truth because we feel shame. We are made to feel as if it's not important. You know, it's not. But let's hear from you.
I don't know. I feel like I want to introduce. I'm always here to muddy the waters a little bit, and I feel that I want to add an additional bullet point to what you've just said, Norca, of where the system is, and I think it's probably one of the backdoor secrets that many of us don't get the chance to think about because of this very thing. I think the system is also our minds.
Yep.
And what we believe. So it don't matter what else changes. You ever hear about the story about the horse that's tied up and they unhook him, but he been tied up so long that the rope just sit on there. He free and he don't go anywhere. It's here. So the system has to change here first. What we believe, and it comes in line with us believing our truth or speaking our truth. If we have been given these messages enough times and gotten enough no's and had enough doors closed, eventually, just like kids, we begin to believe that there's truth in it. And so they don't have to, I'm sorry, that doctor is not with me anymore. I'm 44 years old, but he planted a seed. right here. So in other aspects of my life, it's not neurosurgery, but he planted a seed of doubt. And that's where it has begun. Where I used to believe that I could do anything, he planted a seed. So my mind would say, hold on, before I would say just, yeah, sure, I can do it. It's like, wait, hold on, can you do it?
Yep.
He don't need to be around. So in a sense, I become my own implosive system of oppression for myself when I then say to myself, maybe not, maybe you shouldn't try, maybe this, maybe that. So they don't need to do anything anymore because we then stop ourselves. So I wanted to add that other bullet because up here is so powerful. And if we don't start unchanging this and rewiring this, they could say it from a mile away. All they need to do is just put a seed of doubt.
And that's it. That's it, LaToya. Because I think we're going to receive messages from these systems and conditions. They will be there. The messages will be there. And it really has nothing to do with ambition. I think we have the ambition, but because the message is negative. But you said something. How do we rewire that? We have to rewire that. Go ahead.
Norca, I was saying I think the other part of that, in addition to what LaToya said and you all have been sharing, not only is this because the system is manifesting itself in what we hear, what is being said to us directly, it's creating a feeling of guilt and shame.
Right.
And when those feelings are created, we project it inward, right? And research has shown a lot that women have a stronger proclivity to experience negative emotions and feelings about their own levels of productivity and success.
Right.
So here it is that there is this thing outside of us. And I don't think it's something that we are born with. I don't think I am born to feel like I'm inferior. I think my environmental factors, I think the people around me, I think the community in which I was raised, I think the village and the people who are of the greatest influence, they're the ones that should be responsible for not allowing that system to perpetuate and manifest itself. And I think that is the point here, that you know better, so now you have to do better. So I want to say to all the aunties out there who didn't do their jobs at empowering me and saying, girl, go and do great things, speak as loudly as you can, object as often as you can, walk boldly into spaces, dominate, let your voice be known, let people know when you're dissatisfied with something. So aunties out there who didn't tell me that I needed to do that, you need to apologize to me. I take your apology.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, auntie,
set me up right.
That's right.
Listen.
That's right. And they need to do better by your daughter.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think
do.
now, because the world has changed so much, the system is breaking down. We see it on a lot of levels. We see now that the United States is coming on the bandwagon, and we now have a female vice president, right, who is going to be inaugurated soon. And so did it have to take so long? We knew the systems existed. However, we perpetuated it by saying these negative things to women and saying, you can't be as good as the man. You're not allowed to be there, right? Because biologically, you're not allowed to be there, right? Biologically, you're not allowed to be in spaces where you can have a voice. And I think what we need to be mindful of is we have a job to change the legacy. We have a job to change the trajectory of how women and girls enter the world. It is our job to now say to them, you can be whatever you want to be, and be able to allow them to function in that in whatever way possible.
I think it needs to be more than words, though. I think it needs to be more than words, and I think that's part of the reason we're here today. I think that we make the system. And I'll give another example to see if it's better. We are talking about a lack of Black women in academia and higher education, and you can't be what you can't see. If you've never seen it, you don't think you can be it.
Right.
But if we are thinking of changing the way academia looks, and we're talking about it today, changes we make today will become apparent 15 years from now.
Right.
So when we sit in admission committees and say there's not enough qualified Black students to go into doctoral programs because they don't have enough publications, tell me that. And for years, we stayed quiet and said, you're right. You know how we changed that? And I did that this week. I went up and I said, okay, what are we doing with our master's students that are Black to make sure that when they finish the master's, they can be as qualified as the white ones?
That's it right there.
That we need to change the system. It's not enough to say you can be anything. It means that we need to be brave enough to sit at the board, to go to the church board and say, this is not the way this is going to work. I want to see this and this and this happen. For us to be able to go to the community, to whatever school boards, whatever it is, because if we just tell our daughters, you can be anything you want to be, and the first day she steps into school, she can play with the plates, but the boy can be an astronaut, a fireman, a policeman, and blah, 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 and she can be a teacher, a mommy, or a nurse. All the messaging you can give in words is not going to become real in her life unless we change the system. So those of us who are here now in this space, we need to change it. We can't just talk about it. In whatever space we're in, we need to change the system.
And changing the system, I'm allowing you right now, Chanel. The change in the system means that as women, we need to reckon with the fact that we cannot be competing with each other. That we need to open up the door for another woman without feeling I got special dibs because I got on this table first. I was the one to close it. So that means that we have to strip ourselves of the idea that we are the special ones and start thinking collectively. But Shonda, go ahead. And I have two questions here that were asked. Shonda, as when you finish your comment, I want to screen them.
If we could just do this real quick, and to your point, Nork, about not competing with each other, we can see each other on screen, right? I'm next to Chantel and Chanel, right? We can just place our hands as if we're touching hands, right? Let's see if we're joining, touch each other like, next to each other. That's the type of work and help we need to do. We need to be each other's keeper and help each other move along rather than putting knees up and cutting ties. But to bring it back to a point, your original question was, how does it manifest? Listen to that word. I like to play on words sometimes. Manifest. It's actually right? But we manifested, and that should go in the dictionary, Oxford, if you're listening. But that's one thing, because again, as Toya was saying, it's the message that's in our mind, and as Dr. T was saying, Tricia was saying also, if you look at how we accept these things because it is a system that is actually built to destroy, and I think it allowed ourselves, right? Because we need to own some accountability and responsibility by being silent and not being in our truth, because just don't want to, as Latoya said, muddy the water. But we know now that this is the time. And Chanel, in reference to your point quickly, as we all know, America is about to have its first woman of color vice president. I was listening to her earlier today, and she said something about the current occupant in America's White House being impeached twice. She said, I was saying to someone else, it would be kind of ironic if it was done on Inauguration Day. And it was actually my mom. And she said to me, no, that would take away from their moments. I said, you're right. But then shortly thereafter, she said, it may happen, and it's possible it can happen on Inauguration, because this is what she said. We as women know how to multitask. So if we're capable of multitasking and taking on all these roles and doing all these multiple things, we're just as capable of physically and mentally and emotionally breaking down these barriers and these systems. Because if it were not for Black and brown women,
the world would not be where it is today.
Because we hold up more than half the world. And so that right there is us being in our truth. And we need to apply all those little tidbits that I just shared. They're jewels. Yes, put them in your jewelry box. They're valuable. With our young ones coming along, and even to the boys, so that they learn at an early age the value and respect and power of a woman.
Let me share here. Someone said in Spanish, we have some of our Spanish-speaking members and sisters. They're actually watching us through Zoom with translation. So a question was sent here. Someone said they have told us that when your boss when you speak to your boss, speak in such a way that he might feel that the idea came from him, and then you will always be okay. And that has to do a little bit with what Chantal was talking about, her experience at work. We need to also realize that these conditions and systems of oppression vary by culture. And some things that in some places are unacceptable, some things still go on in some cultures. But what do we say to Bertha, who said, listen, they told me speak as if it's his idea and then I'm going to be okay? What do we say to her?
Narka, can we do one thing before we answer that question? Because I just got a message from one of my friends who's watching, and she said, the lady who was talking about the menus in our report struck a nerve. I have to come back and listen later. I'm sure it wasn't just her that was triggered. So can we just take a pause just for just a little bit of self-care for our women who may have been triggered or brought back memories or has unearthed some feelings of betrayal and, just stomping down, and maybe just give ourselves a 10-second hug or something, because we're sitting in a space here where we're talking about the things that have come to strip our identity and our worth. And some of these things may not have been resolved at all. And many of these women have had to walk away in the shame and embarrassment, knowing that they created something and someone else took the credit for it. So can we just for 2 seconds, just love on ourselves.
Let's try to do a breathing exercise too. I think breathing always helps to clear the air. So if we breathe in deeply, all of us just breathe in. And now in releasing, I want you to release all the negativity, that toxicity. Just blow it out. And in releasing it, just say the words, I am worthy. I am worthy.
I am worthy. I am worthy.
Breathe again. Breathe in. Breathing, you're cleansing. You're bringing in clean air, cleansing yourself. And breathe out, pushing all that stuff out. And say the words, I am enough.
I am enough.
I am enough. And thank you for bringing that to our attention, Latoya, because triggering, and also the fact that while we're here saying that we need to kick systems down, and we do believe that, we also understand that there are women who don't have the hands, the mouth, they can't. They just cannot. They don't know how to. They have been brutalized to a point where they just can't. So we want to be respectful of that also, because while some of us can, and we should for them, not everyone can at this time. So let's be respectful of that. We are. So let's go back to Bertha, who says, I've been told this, when you go speak to your boss, this is what you do, and then you're going to be fine. You're going to keep your job. Any comments to her?
It's real. And I don't want anybody to think that because of what we're saying today, they will go on Monday and speak their truth and will keep their job.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Because the systems are real. Mm-hmm. It's not just words. Mm-hmm. It is real. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They've built it and designed it that way so you cannot speak your truth. So you need to be careful. I have see how I say this. I always think of worst case scenarios. And if I can live with that worst case scenario after doing what I think I should do, I go ahead. I never make decisions or moves without thinking it through, because I never want to be shocked when it happened to say, oh, I didn't think of that. Oh, if I had known, I wouldn't have said anything. So if you are in a place where you need this job, that's what has made us been able to stay here strong in spite of how much time and energy has been spent to silence and kill us. That is why Stacey Abrams lost the governor's mansion and won the country. Won the country.
Right.
And look at what that has generated, the evil that has been just released upon us. Because she fought the system. And she didn't win, but she didn't stay down. And I'm sure she did not go into that thinking, if I don't win, what do I do? She didn't start thinking, let me build a coalition when she lost, or when it was stolen from her. Plan B, C, D, and E. So you have, in the case of this person, I would say, think it through. And if you cannot at this moment live with the consequences of the worst case scenario, start building the way out.
Right. Right. And this is where strategy. What Tricia is saying to you is you need to be strategic. There are times in your workplace when you need to not acquiesce and do and change yourself, but you have to watch, observe, and bid your words. And there are other times when you might be in a position of speaking. So you need to be able to look at that. I want to screen Valerie's comment, which I think is very important. She said that the fact that a church could split because half the members will not welcome a female pastor says a great deal. Now, these are realities that are happening in 2021.
And I assure you that half weren't all men.
And this is not 30 years ago. This is happening now, right? So we need to also sit with the fact that we sometimes are communities of faith where people acquiesce and believe in systems that oppress women. And they think, it's in the Bible. It's, this is what we've done. This is tradition, whatever. We need to deal with that reality also. How do we as women face that, knowing that many women themselves are believers?
I guess I can speak on that one. I have had many a conversation with men who are in the capacity to hire ministers, have very candid conversations with me about things just like that. And it's really interesting because I would say 99% of the time they have said to me, it's not the men that reject having a female minister, it's the women. The women when they go to vote, it's the women that are not comfortable with that for various reasons. God forbid if you're even single or divorced, you could forget that. You know what I mean? But it's a really sad situation because so to parallel this, when we talk about the Black Lives Matter movement and racism and so forth, and there comes a point where you reach a crossroad where you would find some of my white friends say to me, oh, we can step back and just look at y'all because y'all arguing over wanting equality and so forth, but y'all fighting against yourselves. Y'all killing yourselves, within the Black community. Look at all this prejudice against women within the Black community. So y'all arguing with us. Y'all want us to give all these rights, and y'all are doing it. And so I bring it back home to say we may have this argument and we're talking about the men, but women,
Yeah.
We are the men can sit back and say, y'all are doing a good enough job keeping yourselves down.
Yep.
You know, we don't even need to get into the cat fights because we see that. So you may be wanting us to do something, but y'all need to get y'all stuff together first. You know, so there's a lot of inner work that has to happen. It has to happen because we have also been conditioned to believe that we are each other's greatest threats.
That's right. That's right.
And once you are on the defense, it's amazing how another woman can walk into your same genre and you don't even know her name yet, but yet she's your enemy.
Yeah.
But yet you have to cut her down, yet you have to keep her at bay, and you don't even know who her grandmother is and how many children she has. We have been conditioned to believe that because we're told there are only 2 apples in the bucket and you get 1 apple, or you can have the 2 apples and someone else comes in, immediately we turn into female lions to kill.
Yes,
we ask questions later, we kill. And this is a conditioning that I think that we have become like a laughing stock in a sense. I'm just being real here, where many people would say, you know, go ahead and argue with us, but before you even get to us, y'all will be killed out. So we have to really stop this from the inception, from birth, from speaking over our children, from our girls in elementary. Start putting these images of friendly collaborations, of sisterhood in there, because we don't need to defend ourselves against anybody else, because by the time we get there, that we would have killed off each other. So
Right, which is why spaces like this is so necessary, right? Yeah. What we do is so necessary because it is reprogramming, it's reconditioning, right? For so long, we've operated in the reconditioning that we ourselves, we don't even know when we're doing it. Some people really honestly do not know when they're doing it because it has become part of how they operate.
Tradition.
Right. It's tradition. Totally changes it and reprograms the way we operate. And so we have to come to that point where we realize this other woman, you're not my enemy, girl.
Right.
You are not my enemy.
And there's space enough for all of us.
All of us.
All of us can do our thing, and Latoya's thing will be different from what Tricia does, and it's just as valuable as what Chantal does. Until we get to that level as women, and we need to get to that level, we cannot be complaining about chauvinism when we ourselves, Latoya said it right, we're tearing up at each other. I'm always talking about that. We need to, it just needs to stop.
You know why,
we don't need to use that as an excuse either, that we are our own, worst enemies as we see a comment, and that we shouldn't tear each other down. We are to be accountable to ourselves and to
That's right.
And so we can't say, let's just do this way and make it all. No, I need to be able to say to Chanel, no, girlfriend, sister,
that's right.
Not right. That's not right. Mm-hmm. And in love, right? Because that's the way that we, as this gender that's so powerful, are going to be able to make these changes as solidified as they need to be. So yes, let's acknowledge that, but don't use it as the barrier to stop us from getting.
So Shauna, I am so happy you said that, because oftentimes I have found that when I tell women, listen, we're in an organization for women. Oh my God, women, this is women's day. I would never. How could you? Oh, there must be a lot of drama in there. I'm like, no, really not. And we do a lot of work. They don't get it, right? Yeah. Because as you said, there needs to be a level of accountability. But open are we to that accountability? How open are we for my sister to say, hey, listen, this is not working out, or this wasn't, how open before we think, oh my goodness, who she thinks she is, and the neck is rolling. Like these basal things at this level, we need to get right.
Because we don't know what true men.
Because I keep
That's one of the things. We don't know what true mentorship is because we don't know how to break a glass ceiling and pull each other up or teach each other. So if I'm an see, here we go. That. I've written a book, and there's another woman who wants to write a book, right? And it may be the same topic that I want to write. Instead of me saying, I cannot have her take my thunder and my readers, I have gone through that tunnel. So what I need to learn to do, and this some of the things we have not been taught, we haven't been taught to teach, is to pull her up and give her my resources. She has her own level of creativity and her own spice, and and so forth, and help guide her and share some of the knowledge that I have, or all of the knowledge that I have, and pull her in, because her space, I may not be able to reach all of her space, and she can't reach all of my space, but together we're doubling the amount of readers and impact that we can have. But we're so far into the words mentorship. We're so far into being teaching without feeling that it's going to strip us of any life source, and so that's one of the big issues that we have. So we're so defensive, we try to hold on to it, and we're really choking even our legacy, because the more we pour out into our sisters, we're expanding legacy and giving her the tools and the permission to expand her legacy also. And if we don't do it, like Shauna says, accountability is one of the main words that we don't like, because that's negative, but it's a good thing. It's a positive thing to hold true to accountability and keep ourselves honest,
Checking ourselves. Go ahead. I've seen this post about our own insecurities, which is a lot of the reason why we do what we do. We need to really check ourselves. Is it really that she's so terrible that she doesn't like me? Or is it that, wow, there might be some truth in what she's saying and she's just trying to help me out? Go ahead, Tricia.
I think, though, that we still need to be very wise, because not every woman is at this level of maturity. There will be some women who will tear you down, because it's happened to me. I have reached not back, because I have carried with me. And when I realized the saw was being used around the floor I was standing on by the person I lent the saw to make the house. So we need to be wise. We can't just, because we know that we need to help each other, mind your circle. Not everyone can be in your circle. You can't share your secrets with everybody. You can't tell your business to everybody. You can't be friends with everyone. You can't share your plans with everyone. Just because she's a woman, that doesn't make her your sister. You need to be wise.
Let me ask this question. How many of us, the 6 of us here, can identify with what Tricia is saying? Raise your hand.
For sure.
Exactly. I don't know a woman who cannot identify with what she's saying. This seems to be redundant among us. What we're trying to say here is that at some point there needs to be wisdom. And at some point we're calling you out. You need to be wiser. But Chantal, you are the younger woman here. In your generation, does this really happen? Because I know you all have a lot of BFFs.
Like tearing each other down and stuff? Is that what you mean?
Yes, ma'am.
I think now we have messaging that's different. So when I go on social media and I see, profiles about, boss babes and Black girls in media and, girls doing all of these pages that are basically talking about women coming together to work on some kind of, project. We're always talking about collaboration. We're always talking about sisterhood. We're always talking about, fostering relationships that inspire you, that encourage you to level up. Surround yourself with people who are going to bring you to that place, people who bring out the best in you. I mean, and that's my personal experience. Like, I am very grateful for those people in my circle. So I'm just speaking on my own experience. But I know not everybody has that either. But I think it's important to have platforms like this, to have platforms like social media where we can look at messaging like that. We can see women together, not tearing each other apart, but helping each other. But at the same point of what Dr. T is saying, we also understand that not everybody is for you. And, that's another, it's hard. It's hard to kind of, find that balance, because everybody, you want to be genuine. All of my relationships, I take all my relationships very seriously. I'm a people person. I love to connect with people. I'm all about connectivity and community. And, I struggle when I go into spaces and places and I don't feel that and I don't get that. And I'm trying, I'm overcompensating. I'm doing everything I can to bring that community together. And I struggle when that happens to me. And when it doesn't, I kind of just retreat and like, okay, I just gotta do my own thing, I guess, And I've been to conferences like that too. Like I majored in political science and I went to all these different, conferences and summits where we had to, get together with people from all over the country. And I struggled at all of those summits because I could not find just one person that I had something in common with, or that I could just build a genuine friendship with or connection with. Wow. And I said to myself, and that was really sad because I'm in a summit with 200 people who are interested in some of the same things I am about the world and its people and different cultures and all these things. And I can't connect with one person, a genuine connection. Wow. That was really difficult for me. So I say all this to say that I think my generation personally, we are seeing that, there's a lot of people even in our families too that we may not necessarily connect with. And so we find what we need in other spaces, whether it's a coworker, whether it's a boss, a best friend, a neighbor. I think we're more open to that.
Right. So that takes us to our next part for tonight, and then we're going to basically try to share with you some of what we believe will be great things for you to add to your to-do list of things that you can do to improve. Let's talk about truth and how it liberates women. The Bible talks about you should know the truth and the truth shall set you free. And it is indeed so. So speaking our truth, being able to walk in our own selves without feeling guilt or shame for whatever has happened to us. Let's talk a little bit about how that is liberating and what that brings to the table. And yes, we know that for many people, this is something that is just, especially for women in different cultures, you just don't, don't talk a business. But how liberating it is to stand in your own truth. So let's talk a little bit about that.
I think first, the process of even identifying what your truth is, right? I think often you go through something and you kind of have to sit in the realities of your experience first to then be able to put a name to that experience. Because while I may be in a situation where I'm being abused, I may not know that it's abuse. Right. Because I do not know how to name my circumstance. I do not know how to name the experience of what I'm going through. So I first need to sit with myself and to be able to reflect what is happening to me in this process and put a name to it. After I have named it, I then need to use the tools that are around me, these platforms, being able to be in conversation, and not only that, be able to speak it out loud, identify it and speak it out loud. There is something liberating in saying something out loud. There is a power that is released in the atmosphere when we just open our mouths as women. And so being able to say, this is what happened to me, creates a renewing. It sheds off the shackles of the things that have oppressed us for so long. And so being able to name it, being able to speak it out loud, to another person being able to say it in and be okay with it. And when the layers of shame fall off after that, that is where the liberation comes through.
That's right.
That is where you feel like I can walk in this. And the process of being able to name it and speak it out loud means that there is no other person that can now hold that and lower that over me anymore, because I've already been given the form to say what I needed to say. And you cannot tell me about my story because I already said it. So you can't lower it over me anymore. And I think the more we speak our truth is the more we hear the similarities in our stories, and the more other women are able to receive that level of freedom that we're giving, because now it's almost as if my story has given you permission to feel, to name, and to speak your own experience.
Absolutely, Chanel. What a great breakdown you have given. I think that each one of us has experienced being in this organization. We have seen women who have come, love the work, want to do the work, but who have been liberated not by the work, but by standing and speaking. I mean, we can draw a line from before and after. The clear transformation of a person who is able to not hold that over their heads, that shame and that guilt. So great breakdown there. Anyone else would like to share?
I wanted to also bring to mind that there's a stark difference between truth and facts. Okay, so the facts are, this happened to me. The truth is, I am not this.
Right.
Okay, and we get, that's liberating also when we're able to say to someone, this happened to you, but you may have done something wrong, but you are not it. You are not that thing.
Excellent.
And that draws a line, that puts a boundary on that label, on those things that we accept, those untruths that we believe of who we are. So as we start to practice, as we perceive things and we process through things, we start to practice using those words. I may have said something to hurt you, but I am not bad. And that way we can separate it and be empowered to own it, to be accountable to it, to say, I did this, apologize for it, and detach it far from the east to the west of who we are. The truth of who we are is that we are valuable. The truth of who we are is that we are created with this intrinsic value. The truth of who we are is that we are loved. Somebody loves us. We are worth it. So we can separate and throw that thing in the trash and let it go, because when we keep tying what we do with who we are, we don't let it go. We take it everywhere we go, and then we start telling ourselves, I'm a bad person. You know, we do this with kids. You're stupid. Eventually they think they're stupid. Well, I may have done something stupid. That doesn't mean I'm stupid, because I can always learn and grow. The other thing I have been learning where truth is concerned, and it's a concept that I've applied to myself, because for me, it has helped me unwire all of these negative talks. And I'm saying these things not as someone who is seen from the outside. This is the work I've done. Okay, so this is my personal story, and it's taken 20-something years for me to get to be able to say just this. I am not what I did.
Or what was done to you, Latoya,
or what was done to me. So I will stop self-sabotaging, because that is what we do when we believe that we are what was done to us or what we have done. We sabotage ourselves in advance, and we disqualify ourselves from having some beautiful experiences with our village, with our sisters, and with people, because we keep thinking that we are that. So it's like we're a danger to everybody else because we don't detach it. The other thing that I've learned is that feelings live inside of me, right? They take up residence in my organs. We know this, when someone holds on to stuff, they get sick if it's negative. So if those feelings are inside of me, and as Chanel said, you know, like we don't get it out, right? We don't get the stuff out. Then what happens with the truth?
That's right.
Of what we know. I think it's the same concept. So if I know, or if I start believing that I am worthy and I am worth it, but yet I don't do anything to make it alive, and I keep it inside, that thing will just wrestle with us. So there has to come to a point where our bodies are connecting with what we believe, our spiritual man, our physical man, our emotional, and connect it all together and bring that energy out. So if I'm saying, sometimes my therapist says to me, you're saying it, but you don't believe it.
Yeah.
She'll ask me, what is your truth?
Yeah.
And I will say, I'll repeat what she said to me. So she might say to me, Latoya, you're worth it. And I'll say, yeah, I'm worth it. And she'll say to me, you're just repeating what I said. We may need some more work for you to internalize it, and for your body, your organs, your heart, your stomach, all of these things that are affected when we're depressed and we don't believe the truth of who we are, to start believing it so that it could wake up and do for us what we need it to do. So the truth is the accountability of whether we really believe facts over truth.
Right.
Until we can get to that point and look in the mirror and say, this is fact and this is truth, and it is on opposite ends like my right and left arm. And if I put it far enough, they can never touch each other. And I have to lean or run towards what truth is all the time. We will get stuck and we will keep sabotaging ourselves and our relationships. And I'm speaking to Toya right now. I will keep doing that and miss out on opportunities. And then 15 years will go by saying, darn, how much further would I have been? I have just believed this truth and gone for it. So that's the thing that I am attempting every day to practice, so that it can unwire all of these things that I have said to myself that I am. And it's not truth. It's just what I have put myself, what people have said to me.
This is so deep, Toya, because you have said the word internalization. And what we as women need to recognize is that we have internalized a lot of toxic messaging about ourselves and about women and about other women, right? You can't trust women, that type of thing. We have also internalized whenever anything bad happens to us that was done to us, we believe that we carry this as if it's us. We define ourselves by this. But then you draw the line to how that impacts us, not only mentally, but physically in our entire being. And we need to unravel that. And part of that unraveling means speaking the truth, right, about it. But also, how do we start to believe now? How do we start to de-internalize the lies that we have believed for a long time about ourselves, or that were told to us? We swallow them whole, and then we produce it by telling other women and the other little girls in our family. We just bring that. How do we begin to pull that out? And you said something important that I would like us to talk about, which is therapy. A lot of us are afraid of therapy. As people of color, we don't want to do therapy.
But there's a reason.
A lot of it has to do with the fact that we have people that cannot relate to us. That is true.
No, but that's not where I was going.
Okay,
there's
no, I'm not
silence.
going there. I wasn't saying that you were going.
Yeah, no, I know, but there's side, and I wanted to say this when Toya was talking too. The silence literally kills us. And we have a culture of silence that goes beyond. We are told from we're children to be quiet. Don't talk my business outside the house. Don't say what you heard. Then boyfriends say, don't say what I did. Then husbands say, don't talk about what I did to you. Then we want to say it in church. Don't bring it up here in public. There's going to be a bad witness. People are going to think bad about the church. Then we go to your job. Don't say what the boss told you, what the boss. Continual push to silence. And that push extends to therapy. Because you know that if you go, you're going to have to answer questions. And you have been indoctrinated in this whole idea that silence is the value. Silence is what's worthy. The woman that is good is the one that is quiet. The child that is good is the one that nobody hears. So how do we expect people to go and blurt everything out to a therapist and pay somebody money when your whole life you've been told that what is valuable about you is when you do not use your voice?
This is powerful.
And that is the reason why you need to do it with the therapy. Because this person is bound by law to keep your secret.
That's right.
So you need that layer of protection to know if there is one person that I can talk about what happened to me, what I'm feeling, what it has done to my life, that is bound by law. The only way that person can break it out is if I tell that person I'm planning to hurt them or I'm planning to hurt me. Besides that, they can't say a word or they lose their license. That is the value of therapy in a community that has placed such value on silence.
I need to give a hand clap to that.
Right here, right now. We could just stop it right there. Absolutely, Tricia, on the head, on the nail. Absolutely. And not only is that person by law, that person cannot judge you for it. That person, that your pastor may judge you, your mother may judge you, your husband, that person cannot judge you for it. So yes, that is why we need therapy.
That's why.
We need to make an ad. You need to.
And that person will tell you the truth. That person will listen to your facts, but then tell you the truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's another thing. I'm sorry, Norca, just one other thing, because sometimes we do this thing, the marriages or relationships are in trouble and we say couples therapy. And the other person doesn't want to go. Go by yourself. Go by yourself. You need to learn how to deal with the person. Go to therapy so you learn how to deal. You don't have to go with, you don't have to agree.
That's right.
Get the help by yourself.
So that really is going to take us to our last for today. I think that we can go to what we need to do. We want to share our to-do list with recommendations as to what we think you can do to be able to speak in your truth. And it's really kind of like a summary of what we have shared here today. So let's start with Tricia.
So I think that when we talked about this, I wrote what Toya just said. When I say be true to who you are, I don't mean be whatever amount of years, whatever amount of pounds, whatever degrees. That's not being true to who you are. When I say being true to who you are, means that you need to take time to know who that is. And it may very well be that that person is buried under years of degrees, of silence, of self-protection. So in order for you to be true to yourself, you need to know who that is. And when you find who that is, whether it's by yourself, whether if it's with therapy, then you do right by that person. It is your responsibility to protect that person, not the silence, not the lies, not the messages, the person. And then that is what I mean by be true to who you are. In order for you to be able to speak up and use your voice, you need to know what that voice is. You need to know what your message is, what it is you're trying to say. And once you know that, then you can go ahead and share.
Thank you, Tricia. Chantal.
I wrote here, remember to give yourself the grace you give to others. Be kind to yourself because you are your best listener. And what I meant by when I said give ourselves the grace and the courtesy and the pass that we oftentimes give to other people. You know, we try to understand, why do they act that way? Why are they saying this? Why are they doing what they're doing? And we kind of give them a pass for it. We never really extend that same courtesy to ourselves. You know, why am I feeling this way? Why am I doing this? I think we owe it to ourselves to self-analyze and evaluate, and just remember to be kind to ourselves, because I know that was something I was really struggling with this week, is not really being where I want to be at this point in my life, and just feeling frustrated and stuck about a lot of things, and just remembering to give myself grace and to be kind, and everything is okay. I am blessed. I'm very lucky, and I have, you know, all the tools and the resources that I need to move forward in the things that I want to do in my life. So I think it's important to keep reminding ourselves and give ourselves that grace.
Thank you so much, Chantal. Chanel.
The most important opinion is the one that you have of yourself. Love yourself first. And this comes from the concept of negativity derails your chances for success. Negativity derails your chances for liberation, and it also delays your chances for being really in tune with who you are. So when you start to send positive messages to yourself, when you start to stand in your own experience, you start to love you, and it doesn't matter what anyone else says. Their opinions will no longer be your motivation.
Thank you so much for that. Shonda.
Search for what you want and not what others want from you. And I think that just is married to our discussion earlier, being and walking in our own truths, because we, especially a lot of women of color, Black and brown women, have been influenced to think the way others want us to think and to behave the way others want us to think. But when you get to that moment when your gut starts to direct you into a different path that feels good, and it's not necessarily the safest, but there's a level of safety that you feel you can pursue, go for it. I have been known to search out things, events, and environments without the tag-alongs, without the groups, and people look at me and go, yeah, search for what you want, what your heart, your soul, and your gut, and not what others try to mold you in and say you should be the nurse or you should be the housewife. Go for what you want. It is okay, and you have the authority to do so.
Latoya.
I had embrace accountability and own your personal soul truth. What did I mean by that? I had one of the most important lessons last semester, which amplified that for me, accountability and my soul truth. So my soul truth is my voice, not what from what Dr. Tricia was explaining earlier, not what you were told you are, but who you really are, who God created you to be. And that was finding my voice in preaching class. And my professor, Dr. Williams, had said to me that when I spoke, she heard the voice that I had been used to, but I still didn't have my preaching voice. And she helped me find my voice, meaning that register in my voice where when I say certain words, if I say it outside of my voice, my truth voice, it will just sound normal. But in my power preaching voice, it will cause chills to come down your spine. And so I preached one sermon, and I preached it just, I thought I was good, but apparently it wasn't in my preaching voice. And she worked with me with the depth, getting the depth from my bosom, that power and the grain and expression of these words. And when I preached it the second time, I was drenched. She said, not until you are drenched and soaked and have given your all would you know that you've done it right. And I translated that in this very in this very quote, that soul truth is when you can say no and it shuts things down. In the power of your truth, you know that you have reached the amplification of your true voice. And that takes a lot of inner work. That takes work where you may have to unearth and dig out through graves of deaths of other of things that have happened to you that has buried you underneath. It takes a lot of work. It's a painstaking work. It's a very painful work at times. But if you can get down through therapy and all of what we've talked about to get to that voice of yours, when you speak, whether you say yes or no or tell kingdoms and presidents to move, it will sound believable, because you have found the truth and you are accountable to it. So you know when to use it for good, and you know when to use it, to close doors, to open doors. But you have to find that truth, that soul truth in your voice.
Powerful. Thank you for that. I want to end by saying to women that they need to cancel all judges and judgments. Realize that when you allow, that could even be your mind, people that you know, your family members, your co-workers, whoever, to speak into you, and you start to believe their judgments of you, you're allowing them to imprison you. That's what a judge does. He can incarcerate you. So when you start believing in these judgments, you are actually putting yourself in prison, because now you have to fit that mold to be able to supposedly keep yourself in that prison. So I want to invite you to start canceling all judges and all judgments. And those judgments and those judges might be in your head, but as well as they could be people that are very close to you, who for many years you have believed and you have trusted. You need to cancel them. They have spoken toxicity into you. They have spoken negativity. They have put a needle in your dreams and deflated you. It's time to cancel them. And that might mean that you need to retweak those circles. That might mean that you need to move on to other spheres. Look for people who will encourage you, but it's time to say to them goodbye and cancel them out of your life. We want to end and just saying to you, a very important thing here. We believe that all women need to stand in their truth. And this weekend, we're talking about amplifying our voices. But we cannot amplify our voices if we're not able to stand in our truth. And amplifying your voices means that you need to change, that you need to be open to be an influence. And at the same time, your voice, Latoya gave a great example of how that was done for her. Your voice will give you the power that you need. We thank you so much for being part of this conversation today. We see that the women have affirmed all that we have said. We enjoy it. We have not been able to screen all of it, but we thank you for joining us. And we just want to say to you that it's your voice. You have a right to use your voice. You have a right to seek the freedom that you need to use your voice. Thank you very much. Hope you join us in the next Pink Room. Thank you for joining us this time.
And we'll see you next time in the Pink Room.
The Pink Room is a produced resource of For Real Women International, Inc., a non-profit organization with headquarters in New York and affiliates in the United States, Latin America, and the Caribbean. The views expressed here by hostesses and guests do not necessarily represent the philosophy of For Real Women International, its affiliates, members, and board of directors.